There's nothing more terrifying than an idea whose time has come. Are you ready? Here's something that will make your blood run cold. A cautionary tale about mass hysteria from a time when fear got the better of us. This happened right here in Salem, Massachusetts, in 1692. So let me set the stage, and remember, what you're about to hear did happen. These people did exist, and these things did take place in Salem. On January 14th, 1692, 3 young women gathered in a home on the outskirts of town. They were alone, but they weren't doing anything secretive, at least not at first. Their names were Tituba, Abigail Williams, and Sarah Good. And at this moment, they were acting natural, doing normal things like any other young women would do in their everyday lives. In fact, if you were passing by, you might have thought it was just another ordinary evening in Salem. That was until the silence was broken by a knock at the door. Whoever it was didn't stay long. We don't know who they were or why they came, but once they left, things took a turn. Tituba, Abigail, and Sarah started whispering, and that's when the strange things began. It's unclear what exactly they were whispering about, but we know that it had to do with magic and witchcraft. They spoke of familiar spirits, supernatural beings that witches supposedly conjure up to serve as their agents on Earth, aiding them in their wicked practices. They also talked about voodoo and spells, casting glances at each other over their shoulders. They were so engrossed in their conversation that they didn't notice Samuel Parris enter the room, the minister of Salem Village. Hearing his daughter's hushed voices, he couldn't help but eavesdrop on them. He listened intently as they discussed the dark arts, their words echoing in the dimly lit room. It was a scene straight out of a horror movie, except this was real life in 17th century Salem. Samuel, like any concerned father, was shocked and alarmed by his daughter's interest in witchcraft. In those days, it wasn't uncommon for ministers to view anything outside the bounds of Christianity with suspicion and fear. So naturally, he tried to stop them. He interrupted their conversation, demanding an explanation for their strange talk. But Tituba, ever cunning, shifted the blame onto Sarah. She claimed that it was Sarah who had brought up the topic of witchcraft, and that she herself had only been a passive listener. In that moment, Samuel saw not his daughter caught up in a dangerous game, but a chance to rid his community of a supposed evil presence. Sarah Good Tituba's quick thinking put Sarah in a precarious position. She became the center of suspicion, and soon found herself accused of practicing witchcraft. To prove her innocence, she agreed to a test, one commonly used in those times to determine whether someone was a witch or not: the swimming test. If she floated, she was innocent. If she sank, she was guilty. It was a test based on the belief that witches could not swim. Unfortunately for Sarah, she sank, confirming her guilt in the eyes of the community. What neither Tituba nor Samuel realized at that moment was that they had just set in motion a chain of events that would change their lives forever. They hadn't yet seen the depths of the darkness that was about to envelop Salem. Their seemingly simple act of stopping a few girls talking about witchcraft would soon transform into a nightmare from which no one would wake up unscathed. The accusations flew thick and fast. Tituba, under pressure, confessed to being a witch and implicated Sarah and Abigail in her supposed coven. Soon, the entire town was buzzing with rumors of witchcraft, fueled by the testimonies of these 3 young women. A special court was convened to deal with the burgeoning crisis. Among its members was Judge William Stoughton, a man known for his zealous pursuit of witches in neighboring Connecticut. His presence was a grim omen for those accused, as his track record showed no mercy. Also present was John Hathorne, a man whose family name would become synonymous with cruelty and injustice during the trials. He, too, was eager to find witches, seeing it as his duty to rid Salem of this supposed evil. But amidst this fervor, there was one person who seemed out of place: Reverend George Burroughs, a man of God who preached mercy and understanding. He opposed the trials, believing that the accusers were misguided and that the accused were innocent. He stood out like a beacon of hope in a sea of fear and superstition. The trials commenced. Some were well-respected members of the community, while others were outcasts. There were farmers, shopkeepers, even servants. But regardless of their social standing, all were treated alike once the accusations were made. As the trials progressed, things took a sinister turn. Accusations became confessions, not because of tangible evidence, but due to pressure, threats, and outright torture. People were condemned not on the basis of their actions, but on the say-so of a few young women. It was a travesty of justice, a distortion of truth that led only to misery and despair. But even in the face of such grave injustice, there were those who resisted. Rebecca Nurse was one such person, a pillar of the community, respected by all. She was accused, despite her impeccable character and numerous acts of charity. Her trial became a pivotal point in the narrative, a turning point where the true nature of the trials was laid bare. Her mere existence challenged the foundation upon which these accusations were built, exposing the fragility of the entire enterprise. And then there was Reverend Burroughs, who continued to preach against the trials, calling for reason and compassion. He became a symbol of enlightenment amidst a rising tide of fanaticism, a voice of sanity in a world that had been turned upside down. His words, though often ignored, served as a reminder of the humanity of those accused and the need for fairness in their treatment. Throughout the trials, the accused were subjected to unimaginable horrors. Torture was commonplace, with suspects often beaten or starved to extract confessions. Some were even subjected to spectral evidence, where the accusers claimed to see the spirits of the accused tormenting their bodies. It was a terrifying ordeal, a grotesque parody of justice, where the line between accusation and conviction was blurred beyond recognition. In the end, it was a combination of factors that brought the trials to a halt. As more and more prominent members of the community were accused, people began to question the validity of the trials. Even Governor Phipps, initially a supporter of the trials, eventually intervened, ending the reign of terror and pardoning those who had been sentenced. In the aftermath, many families were left shattered, reputations were ruined, and lives were cut short. The legacy of the Salem Witch Trials remained a stain on the annals of American history, a reminder of the dangers of mass hysteria and religious extremism. The story doesn't end there. Long after the trials, people still whispered about Salem and its dark past. Imagine living in a world where your neighbor could accuse you of witchcraft and have you imprisoned without a shred of evidence, where a simple cough or a sneeze could be interpreted as a sign of bewitchment, where fear and paranoia ran rampant, turning neighbor against neighbor. Now imagine being in a courtroom where the judge is more interested in convicting witches than in ensuring justice, where the jury is swayed by the most outlandish claims, and where the accused have no right to defend themselves. The Salem Witch Trials were not just a historical event. They were a stark reminder of the fragility of human civilization in the face of fear and fanaticism. They were a testament to the power of suggestion and the ease with which people can be manipulated into believing the most absurd things. They were a warning about the dangers of unchecked religious zeal and the importance of separating faith from reason. They were a story of how quickly things can go wrong when logic and rationality are abandoned in favor of blind belief. They were a reminder of the cost of mass hysteria and the need for critical thinking in the face of adversity. They were a lesson in the importance of due process and the rule of law and the need to protect the innocent from the whims of an angry mob. But perhaps most importantly, the Salem Witch Trials were a story of courage and resilience in the face of unimaginable adversity. They were a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the ability of individuals to stand up for what is right, even in the darkest of times. They were a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, one person's voice can make a difference, and that the fight for justice is always worth having. This was a chilling tale of how fear can consume an entire community, leading to unthinkable acts of persecution. It serves as a stark reminder of the importance of empathy, understanding, and critical thinking in the face of fear and uncertainty. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. And if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, please drop them down below. We would love to hear from you. Until next time, stay curious and keep questioning.